Now, more on that huge win in the federal court today, where a judge ruled that a jihadi hate preacher, Wissam Haddad, breached racial discrimination laws in a series of sermons and lectures.
The imputations include age-old tropes against Jewish people that are fundamentally racist and anti-Semitic. They make perverse generalizations against Jewish people as a group. Jews in Australia in November 2023 and thereafter would experience them to be harassing and intimidating.
Joining me on the desk for more on the result is Australian Jewish Association President David Adler. David, I imagine you were pleased with this judgment today?
Yes, it'd be much better than the alternative, and we are pleased that this particular type of hate preaching can't hide from the law, calling on Islamic radical ideology. So from that point of view, it's good. To be perfectly honest, I'm not a great fan of 18C.
Nor am I. I talked about that at the top of the show.
And I don't see it as curing anti-Semitism. We think that there are some bigger issues that need to be addressed, but here's a win.
Thanks, guys.
Let's bed it down and make sure that this particular brand of incitement should cease.
Well, and that was my point, is that the reason, as much as I don't agree with 18C, and in an ideal world I don't think it would be possible to run a case like this because 18C wouldn't exist, but the reason this case was run is because the criminal element of the law didn't deal with what I thought were issues that could potentially lead to, or were advocating for, elements of violence against Jewish people. And the parts of the judgment today do talk about that. That's why this case was run, because seemingly the criminal law is too weak to deal with those matters.
There are a couple of lessons that come out of this, Caleb, and the failure to use the criminal law is a really important one. We have been very, very disappointed by the weak leadership politically on anti-Semitism, and frankly the failure of our law enforcement authorities. Beginning on October 8, when we had Islamic preachers in the street of Sydney celebrating the massacres of Jews in Israel, October 9 at the Opera House with the riots, and a number of laws were broken on both those days, and yet no consequences. And this is what's opened the opportunity for the hate preachers to be more and more emboldened. So our lessons here are that, yes, you can't hide behind the extremist religious ideology. Secondly, that the authorities have been ineffective, demonstrably ineffective. There is a lot more to be done. When you alluded to incitement of violence, when we hear them talk about intifada, that is an incitement to violence. Intifada is a violent uprising involving terrorism and the murder of Jews. No action. When they chant all Zionists are terrorists, well, Zionism is simply recognising the right of Jewish people to have self-determination in their biblical homeland, nothing more than that. So the vast majority of Jewish people in this country are Zionists. Doing that sort of smear is outrageous. And again, no action. And the final observation that I'd make is that because 18C was used as the legal instrument, the consequences are very minor. All he's had to do is pull down the offending material and promise not to do it again. We have seen in Europe, in Italy and France in particular, that if these hate preachers are foreigners, if they've got citizens, and in fact, in some cases, if they're dual citizens, their centres can be closed down and they're deported. And that is the sort of action that we need in Australia. It is a big deal. And I'm not smearing all Muslims, of course, but we have to recognise and have a discussion concerning immigration policy, the sort of people we want in this country, These are discussions which have been avoided.
Yes.
And if you look at the census data over the last few decades, the growth rate of the Muslim population is 4 times the general population.
Correct.
And we have been importing people from Gaza in their thousands, which is an area that is substantially influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood. So all these big issues are being ignored. We welcome the win today. It's important, but we want our authorities and our political leadership to deal with the really big problems.
Indeed. David Adler, thank you so much for joining me tonight.